Good morning, internet land. As usual, we are just waiting for Instagram to catch up. And when it does, we will go live with DIY Wellness episode 3. Almost there. Okay. One more second. I see Instagram catching up. We are now live.
Awesome. So welcome to DIY Wellness. This is a show for people who are taking personal growth into their own hands. On this show, we're exploring different strategies for improving quality of life and well-being. And in each episode, Brian and I are kind of like mad scientists in a lab. We are experimenting with different methods of improving well-being and satisfaction in our lives, so that you can create your own informed opinions about these different methods and decide for yourself whether you want to try them or apply them to your life. Brian and I are both certified life coaches, so we know that what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another. So we basically just want this podcast to be a resource hub for you to be able to find the well-being strategies that'll work best for you.
Yeah.
So the way that we like to start our podcast is by asking this question: how are you taking personal growth into your own hands today, Brian?
Okay, well, I am taking personal growth into my own hands by building my confidence, and I'm doing that by taking action, because that's the way confidence is formed. That's the main way. So we'll get into a little bit about how that happens, but we're going to talk about that today: how confidence is not formed, how it is formed, and then we're going to get into the enormous value of just getting started, because that seems to be the hardest part for people. That's definitely the hardest part for me. And when you get started, how to start in a way that will actually build your confidence, which means starting small, very small. And then at the end, we're going to leave you with an exercise that you can practice on your own to see how it helps your confidence flourish. And dive right into that then. I'm going to just jump in and tell you guys how confidence is not formed, because society has led us down the rabbit trail of false ideas as per usual, and confidence building is no exception. And so here's how it's not formed. It's not formed by having successful experiences. It's not formed by achieving degrees, promotions, and related milestones. It's not formed from obtaining experiences at the thing about which we want to be confident in or from, at least not at first. And it's not formed by support and encouragement from others. Those can help. Those things aren't like the antithesis of confidence building, but they are not its foundation. Its foundation is an action taking built on a proper mindset.
So we have a comment that says that there's a big echo. I tried checking, but I think that we're okay.
I'll turn my fan off just to see.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps.
Cool. Sweet. Okay. I tried playing it on my computer just to see if I could hear it, and I didn't hear anything. So, okay. Sorry to distract. I just want to make sure we were good.
No, that's okay. Me too. No, we don't want an errant echo.
Yeah. So we usually start with some form of definition. So I want to kind of bring in the definition of confidence and then kind of give an intro to how it's formed. And then Brian has a few like myths about how it's formed. Or did you just cover that? You didn't.
Those were the myths.
Okay, great. Perfect. Yeah. Sorry, I was doing tech issues here. Okay.
That's totally good.
So confidence at a very base sense is a feeling of trust in yourself and your abilities. And as Brian said, we can build this through action taking, which is something that both of us are working on. Awesome. So is it Sona or Sonia?
Sona. Sweet Sona.
Sona. Awesome. Thank you. Cool. So confidence can be built through building your belief in yourself and your ability to do things. And there's kind of like a two-pronged approach to it, because obviously there's some mindset work with it, right? Because if you're not believing in your abilities and you can build your belief in your abilities through mindset work, then that's one way to do it. But you don't always have to be just working in your head and working with your thoughts specifically directly in order to build confidence. You can also do it in sort of an external sense. If you can prove to yourself that you are capable by taking action or doing things, even in the smallest, tiniest, most seemingly inconsequential ways, that will also build confidence. So the thing that Brian and I wanted to talk about today is, when we take action, how does that build our confidence?
Yeah, exactly. And I would say you just said like even in the inconsequential small ways. And I would add to that mostly in the inconsequential small ways. When we take action in those small ways, the likelihood of those small things being completed or successful is higher because we're not biting off more than we can chew. And as we achieve those small little milestones, really, really tiny ones, it's the taking of that action that and the feedback loop of that that builds the confidence, right? So we don't actually want to say, oh, they said build confidence through action taking. So I'm going to go right to the finish line and try to achieve, build the skyscraper. Like that's going to actually decimate your confidence because you
Mhm.
can't build the skyscraper if you don't first make the blueprints and if you don't first learn architecture, right? So there's little tiny steps all along the way. And those little tiny steps, taking action on those is where the rubber meets the road in terms of confidence building.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we take a small action towards something we want, so I'm going to use the example of like when I wanted to start working out regularly. If we I could start out by saying, "Oh, I want to do a 1-hour workout every morning," which inevitably probably from cold turkey is not going to go super great. Some people are able to do it because they have a really really strong compelling reason why they want to do that. But if you don't have that, if you don't have an extremely strong compelling reason why, just waking up and saying I want to do this big thing now is usually not going to be super sustainable. You're usually not going to be able to have the level of confidence and motivation you need to do something that drastic. So, what it ends up taking is doing any small amount of action towards that later ultimate goal, which then shows you that you are capable of making progress towards that goal, which gives you enough confidence to then increase
Hmm.
the amount of action that you're taking, which then continues to increase your confidence. So, like for me, when I was starting to work out, I rather than just saying I'm going to work out for an hour, sometimes it would be I'm going to wake up and stretch. And the more that I could do that habit or that action, even on days that maybe I didn't feel like it, I was still showing myself that I was capable of showing up. I was capable of participating and moving towards what I wanted. And that gave me enough momentum to then move towards the eventual bigger goal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's so right. And the thing is that when we take these small actions and we have these little wins, because the idea here is that you take such small actions that they're in Martha Beck's world, we call them turtle steps. And the way she defines a turtle step is that when you think about taking that step, it feels so ridiculously easy to you. Like, ugh, pff, anyone could do that. Why would I even bother with such a small step? But then the trick is to bother, to go take
Mhm.
that ridiculously easy small step. And what happens is it feeds back into your mindset because now the original belief, "Ooh, I'm not able to handle this," becomes, "Well, I was able to handle that." And then it
Yeah.
becomes, "Well, I was able to handle that and that." And then it becomes, "Oh, I'm able to handle that and that and that and that and that and that and that." And then
Yeah.
suddenly that uproots the other belief completely. And now you have changed the belief, "I'm not capable," into, "I am capable." But that belief, that mindset change comes through action taking, small, bite-sized, not more than you can chew, because just think about that analogy even. If you bite off more than you can chew, you're going to choke. That's what that leads to,
Mhm.
right? And so you
Yeah.
don't wanna choke. You wanna bite off just what you can chew, maybe even a little bit less, and really digest it fully, and then let that
Yeah.
seed into your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially when we say we're going to take a small action to help build confidence, what we're saying is we're collecting evidence
Mhm.
of our own capability. And as that compiles and as that builds, that's what creates this result of reshaping your beliefs about yourself and believing that you can do things or believing that you're good at things or whatever. It's not just, oh, I start from a place of lack of confidence and I think I can't do this or I suck, whatever. And then I just tell myself the opposite. Mm-mm. You have to collect evidence
Yeah.
that eventually it's like you have a pile of like evidence that you feel like, oh, I suck. And then when you collect evidence that you're like, I don't, eventually the pile of evidence that you don't suck is going to get bigger
It's
than
so
the other
true.
pile. And then you can switch over to this new belief and convert it. But it's, I feel like too often people are like, oh, just like think positively. No, you can't just switch the belief. You have to collect. the evidence, you have to collect the experiences that prove to you that something different than what you've been taught to believe about yourself is true.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love that analogy of the 2 piles that you just outlined and collecting the evidence because that's the thing. It's like we can't just decide that we're gonna believe something different from what we believe because that's the nature of a belief. We believe it. We have faith
Mhm.
in it, right? And so because the reason we have the faith in it is because of all the evidence. And so actually, when you pile up evidence in a different direction, you don't even eventually have to go back to the belief and say, I can change this now because the evidence is bigger. The belief changes automatically because the beliefs are formed as a way to keep us safe and to make us feel certain and all that other stuff that the left brain is so good at. And so when you pile up new evidence that you can or you're able, the belief will follow ultimately because the belief is trying to align itself with what it thinks is true, what it believes to be true. And if now the belief that I suck is seems like nonsense to the ego mind, it will drop it on its own because you've collected this other evidence. So that's the thing here. Mindset work, the trick of this kind of mindset work is that it rests, the effectiveness rests in the taking of the action, not in doing the cognitive processing because we know I'm not capable is a limiting, boring, false, awful belief that's not going to cause any happiness and it's only going to cause suffering. We know that, but we can't just decide, oh, I am capable and now I'm capable. No, we got to do the evidence collecting. We have,
Yeah.
I read
So, Brian,
something. Oh, go ahead.
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I read
I w
something in psychology today that said it outlined like the core beliefs of confidence. And like I was reading through the core beliefs and I was like, huh, like these feel daunting, right? They feel daunting. Like who believes all of these? But over time, as you take action, they become matter of fact. So here's what they are, right? Knowing outcomes can't be controlled and that preparation, persistence, and effort matter, seeing success as a dynamic process as opposed to an end result, and that setbacks and hardships are just part of that process. But we normally think the other way. Oh, setbacks, hardships, they mean I suck. That means I suck, right? So we have that other
Yeah.
belief about it. Or this is a great one. They believe success is inevitable if they stick with it. Like, I don't always believe success is inevitable if I stick with it. I'll cop to that. But I'm starting
Yeah.
to more and more the more action that I take. They also see failure as temporary and good feedback and a chance to learn. I tend to see failure as a sign that I'm an asshole. And so that's mindset work I have to do, right? Like, because that's not going to lead to confidence. And then they also do not take rejection or failure personally. As a writer who has submitted to agents and been rejected hundreds of times, I can also say I'm still working on that one. But the
Yeah.
more that I take the action, the more confident I get and the more I submit to more agents. So it's a, and hopefully, if I can really get on board with that third belief that success is inevitable if I stick with it, then I will stick with it, right? So, but action taking is what leads to these aspirational beliefs becoming true in our reality instead of just being something written on a, I don't know, a placard that you want to slap the person who wrote it because they don't feel true at all, right?
Mhm.
So
Well,
taking action.
and part of the reason that we're talking about confidence is because when you have it, when you build the skill of confidence, life gets a lot easier because you're more likely to feel compelled to take more action and to strive towards things you want rather than, giving up on them. And I just wanted to point out that some of the beliefs that the confident beliefs that Brian just shared, you can imagine how when you hold that mindset, if
Mm,
you're able to access it, like, how much more likely are you to take the actions that are going to get you what you want? So, if, for example, if I believe that success is inevitable, if I do XYZ, right? If that's my belief and that's my level of confidence, of course I'm going to do things that lead me to the outcome that I want. But if I don't believe that, if I think to myself, oh, I could put in all this effort and it might not matter at all, then you're not gonna wanna put in the effort, and so
yeah,
that
that's
this is why
demoralized.
it's yeah, this is why it's important to try to do any amount of action that's going to collect that evidence and build that confidence pile for you, because if you can get yourself to the place where you can access a little bit more confidence, a little bit more belief in yourself and your capabilities, you're inherently going to become more capable, you're inherently going to become more motivated, more, excited about the things that you envision for yourself in your future, and
Mhm.
that will make your life better.
Yeah. It's always about trying to make us like, enter the lane of thriving and leave the lane of suffering, and confidence is a huge part of that. So let's go into now like So we've talked a lot about how it's not formed and then how it is formed, and we know it's through taking action, but not
Mhm.
just any action. So let's get into like this our second point here, which is taking really small bite-sized chunks. We have touched on it a little bit already, but there's two things
Mhm.
about this type of action taking that we want to make sure we leave you guys with. One main point is that there's so much value in just getting started. Sometimes we think like, "Oh, I don't have the mindset yet, so I'm gonna hire a coach. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna like take an online course." That's all fine because those are actually action steps. But sometimes after a while, those kinds of action steps, that if you're not actually taking action on the thing itself, the thing you're wanting to build, the thing you're trying to do, then that's just mindset work, and what you wanna do is
Yeah.
let that mindset work become evidence in your reality, and so just get started. Get started on whatever it is. Right now, I'm trying to learn this email software, and my version of just getting started has been to watch all these online tutorials. That has given me the confidence to now be able to say, "Okay, I'm gonna get on the phone with support chat." You would think getting on the phone with support chat should not need confidence, but in my case, it did because I'm a people pleaser. I don't want to hold somebody up for hours on end. And I was like, but I have hours of questions. So I needed to like get a little bit of a foundation first. Then I
Mhm.
could feel like I could call them. Right. So just get started. Whatever it is, just get started. There's a sutra by a yogi that I know. And he says, um, if the pressure is on, start and the pressure will be off. And that is so true. So just start
It
in the
does feel like that.
starting. Yeah, because in the starting, you feel differently. And there's actually some research to show that the areas of the brain that light up when we're doing this kind of thing, when we're in a confident place, they are the same areas of the brain that are responsible for reward and pleasure. So
Mhm.
when you're not getting started, you're dreading the thing. It feels haunting. It feels awful. You have all those limiting beliefs we talked about. As soon as you get started, you've moved into these other brain circuits that just feel good. So, but the key here is just get started. And then the second key to keep you in that zone of it feeling good is that you continue small. You start small because if you jump into that, you wire those brain circuits, you light them up and you start feeling good, but then you've bitten off more than you can chew, you will start to choke, right? So get started, but then stay at a pace that you can really sustain and handle.
Mhm.
So it can be so small.
I think the key to this is when you're trying to start small, when you're trying to work towards a goal, uh, usually the first thing that a mind that is struggling with confidence is going to say is that whatever small thing I'm trying to do is not enough. And
Yeah,
that is how shifting that is how you open the door for yourself to make progress. Because if I say to myself that waking up at a certain time isn't enough or stretching, I'm going to use my example from earlier. Stretching is not enough if my ultimate goal is to, have a more powerful workout. What is the result of me telling myself that it's not enough? I get discouraged, I feel demotivated, and then I don't not only do I not work out, but now I'm not even stretching.
right.
Now I'm not doing the smaller thing. So the crucial piece here is to be able to tell yourself that any amount that is in the direction that you are trying to move towards is enough. Even if, let's say, you're trying to, I keep turning to exercise, but I feel like that's the most relatable example. If I'm trying to walk every day, and all I do is put on my shoes and walk to the corner, which is like 3 houses down. That is more of a walk than no walk at all. And
Yes.
even if I'm just walking 3 houses down and coming back, I got some fresh air, I got some sunlight, I put my shoes on, that's closer. And if I
Yeah,
can let
like you build the
myself
neural
sit.
pathway, you start the habit
Yeah,
forming, all of it. It's so good.
yeah, if I can let that be enough, then by the time I get to the corner, I might be able to convince myself to go a couple more blocks. Or
Yeah.
just circle the block, and then so what you're doing by, letting the smallest possible action be enough is you're giving yourself the opportunity to do more.
Yeah. You're
Whereas if
building
you
momentum
didn't.
without any obligation.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. I have an example of that. The it's sort of in the negative, right? I'm trying to uproot something from my life, and
Mhm.
it's the Starbucks lattes, which if you've been following us for the last year or 2, you've
Yeah.
heard me talk about them a lot, and you've been witness to my struggle with them, and so, like, that's because the struggle was a result of I don't believe I can, success is not inevitable, right? Those beliefs. I don't believe I can. I'm not capable of switching this habit. And so because I didn't have those confident beliefs, my non-confident beliefs led me to try to always quit cold turkey. Boom, 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 boom. So I had this like 3.5 year struggle with different bouts of cold turkey where I would quit cold turkey for a month. I would quit cold
Mhm.
turkey for a week. I quit cold turkey for 6 months. In the middle of those bouts of quitting, I felt so successful, but there was always the
Yeah.
snapback to drinking my lattes, and then I was just like drinking all this caffeine again. So just to be clear, this is a personal goal of mine. You can drink caffeine all you want. You can drink lattes all you want. This is for
I'm gonna
me.
I'm gonna make an espresso immediately after this.
Perfect. Exactly. So yeah, so just remember also your goals need to be very individualized to you. But finally,
Yeah.
in January of this year, I decided to approach it differently. I decided to, ha, gasp, take my own fucking advice. And so what I did was I did small steps. I started really small. And for the whole month of my drink was a large iced chai latte with coconut milk, 5 pumps of chai, and very light ice. So that's a lot of coconut milk and chai. And it's high maintenance to boot, right? So the whole month of January, I just said, I'm going to drink larges and think about how I want to switch this up. I'm going to make sure I think about that each day. That's super small. Most people would say that's nothing or that that's not enough, like Mo was just talking about. But
Yeah.
then in February, I said, I'm going to drink larges one day, mediums the next. So I went large, medium, large, medium, large, medium. And then for all of March, I did mediums. And then for all of
Mhm.
April, I went medium, tall, medium, tall, medium, tall, medium, tall. And then for all
Mhm.
of May, tall. And then for all of June, I was like tall skip, tall skip, tall skip, tall skip. And I wasn't perfect either. Like
Yeah.
sometimes in my medium tall month, I had a large. Sometimes in
Yep.
my tall skip month, I didn't skip the day I was supposed to skip. So allowing mistakes is key to this too, that the mistakes, the but I, because the mistake would happen and I knew the next day the action I needed to take was still ridiculously small, it was okay. It was easier to get back on the horse. It's like I'm getting back on a toy horse. And
Mhm.
so it's simpler to just jump up on the toy horse. It's shorter than I am, right? But
Yeah.
imagine if I was trying to jump up on a real horse. I guarantee you, if you know anything about me, I would fall right off that sucker. And so this was the
Sucker.
way forward for me. And I
Yeah.
told my therapist about this at one point, just kind of like explaining. And she goes, wow, Brian, that's so self-gentle and what a kind
Mm.
approach. And I was like, huh, yeah, it is a kind approach. And so that's why it works.
Yeah.
It works because we're being kind. It works because
Yeah.
we're being gentle. But in that kindness and gentleness, we're not allowing ourselves to become deactivated. We're being
Yeah.
kind and gentle while we take action. Messy, bad, mistake-filled action.
Yeah, and you stayed committed to your goal throughout that, partially because it never became so unbearable because
Yes.
you were doing what your nervous system could handle.
Yes, exactly. And then I had bouts of the lattes even in July and a little bit in August. But now I can say right now, I've been off them for about 7 weeks. That feels
Mhm.
amazing to me. I was off
Yeah.
them for longer at one point when I did the cold turkey thing, but this feels different. I feel a difference in my nervous system. I feel a difference in my confidence level around it. So yeah, guys, just start small, go ridiculously small. There is no rush. This is not a race. This is your life.
Mhm. Yeah. Ooh, I like it. Okay. So, uh, would you like to move into the exercise?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Unless you wanna tell the story about your artist. I thought that was an awesome story that you mentioned to me.
Yeah, yeah, so that's a piece of it. So,
Okay, great.
one we were just talking about giving yourself permission to let something be enough, let a small amount be enough. And part of like one of the reasons why some of us struggle to let a small amount of action be enough is because we have high standards for ourselves, for others. We want things to be right, we want things to be perfect. And so if you ever like face some of those thoughts, like I'm struggling to take action because I want to do it the right way, then this exercise might be for you and it might help you build some confidence. So, I was working with a client at one point. We were working through a little bit of perfectionism and we were trying to help them really basically do more art because that was the thing they were passionate about and they were kind of facing a block and some procrastination with that. And so what I offered to her, the exercise that I gave her was to intentionally do bad art. Do something that she wouldn't normally do, that she wouldn't be proud of, just allow herself, give herself the permission to do it bad.
I love this.
And Leading up to this, it had been, like, a couple months, and she like, every time she sat down to try to make art, she, like, could not because she was being incredibly hard on herself, and when I gave her permission or invited her to make bad art, she immediately set to it and made, like, 6 things, and she had a blast, she had so much fun, and she let her
Mm.
curiosity lead her and figure out, "What do I wanna make?" Or, "What do I think would be fun?" Or, "What do I think would be silly?" And so she made bad art, but she was making art and she wasn't making art before then. And so, one way to build your confidence is if you're struggling to get yourself to do something, do it bad, do it terribly. And then
Mm,
you're still taking more action than you would have been otherwise. And in the end, it's probably not even going to be that bad. Like, you know?
yes. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
So,
love
yeah.
the permission to do things badly and do things
Yes.
messily. That's so countercultural. We are literally taught the opposite, where we go to school and we're told, "Get the right answer, and there's only one right answer, and you better get it, or you're gonna get an F." In fact, there's so
Hmm.
many ways to skin the cat, and we can just make a mess and have fun making a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. So, permission, 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 and let whatever you are capable of doing be enough and stay committed to whatever you're trying to build. And
Yeah,
that'll get you there.
that'll get you there. Just don't forget, ask yourself, "How can I do it badly?" And then just get started.
Yes. That's a good summary, Brian. I like that.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for being here, everybody. We enjoy having you, and we will be back again next week at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time for another episode of DIY Wellness, where we talk about how to take personal growth into your own hands. Until
And one
then,
more thing.
oh, go
One
for
more
it.
thing.
Yeah,
If any of you have a way that you're personally taking your personal growth into your own hands, leave a comment, share it with us, and then maybe we'll do an episode about it.
right on. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that, Mo.
Of
Have a
course.
great week, everybody, and we'll see you soon.